What is actually going on? What are they thinking? Who is making these decisions? What are Disney doing? What are Sony doing? What are the developers doing? We have no idea. But unfortunately, I hate that I have to say this and I hate that I'm making this video, but there's a huge chance that KOTOR, the remake, is cancelled. What? And Sony has actually just made an official statement about this. We're gonna look at that today, unpack everything, and try and make some actual sense of what is going on. There's a chance it's not cancelled, but there's also a massive chance it is cancelled. Which I really hope is not the case. Hey everyone, it's Andrew. So let me break down the full story of what's happened in the past 48 hours. On the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit, someone noticed that the Star Wars KOTOR remake trailer that was released in 2021 had been taken down. It was no longer on the official PlayStation YouTube channel. They removed it, which everyone was like, why would they do that? It's been unlisted or made private. It doesn't exist anymore on there, even though obviously it's in multiple other places. You can still watch it on YouTube, just not where it was originally posted, where it likely had millions of views. And as far as I know, PlayStation also deleted other places this had been posted on their socials, like on Twitter, deleting tweets from when this game was announced in September 2021. And obviously this game has already had a bit of a bumpy start. Aspyr were originally the developers, but now it's shifted to Saber Interactive, which falls under Embracer Group. Aspyr are the guys who were making all of these Star Wars remakes, like the Star Wars Racer port to PS4, the Republic Commando report, along with a bunch of others. So they're kind of known for their ports and not actually developing games, and it seemed like the state the game was in at Aspyr was something PlayStation, Sony weren't happy about.
What are you? An idiot sandwich.
So they decided to shift full development of the game to Saber Interactive. But the problem with this as well is that Saber Interactive don't really make AAA games, especially AAA Star Wars games. They're more AA kind of style games. I don't know, I think they've made a bunch of racing games, random things. Nothing that I recognize as being notable. Let me know if I'm wrong about that in the comments, please. Also, while you're there, like the video. Do it. Do it. So obviously, with a trailer being removed and deleted from YouTube and other social media platforms, it sparks a huge reaction when people notice this, seeing as though it basically feels like they're trying to hide this project away. Pretend it almost didn't even happen, pretend it didn't get announced, even though this Knights of the Old Republic remake is likely one of the most anticipated Star Wars games on the horizon, and let's please not add it to the long list of cancelled Star Wars games, the most notable of which is probably Star Wars 1313. It was a long 10 years ago. May it still rest in peace. And before we get to what Sony said, we need to look at what Embracer Group, the company that owns Saber Interactive, who are making KOTOR remake, are actually going through right now, because it's not good, and it's possibly why we're not hearing anything about the Knights of the Old Republic. So over the past few years, Embracer Group have been buying multiple studios and IPs, trying to acquire more games and studios for their portfolio, so that they can expand their roster of games and branch out their business model. However, to help cover investments, they were reportedly after a $2 billion investment deal, which only recently fell through, leaving the company to close multiple studios, have layoffs, and a bunch of other problems that have arisen after this. Their shares dropped 40%. I can't believe we're talking about finance on Bombastic. What am I doing? But all of this, unfortunately, seems to affect KOTOR, because Embracer is running out of money, having to let go employees, and doesn't have the resources to maintain and build games like this, especially at one of their potentially smaller studios in Saber Interactive. The whole thing is a mess, man. The whole thing is a mess. It's so disappointing to have to talk about KOTOR being potentially cancelled, but Sony have given us a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully. Sony doesn't normally make statements like this, but after the news spread that the KOTOR remake trailers had been removed, they came out and said, as part of normal business, we delist assets with licensed music when the license expires. Apparently, they've also previously taken down a Spider-Man Miles Morales trailer. So basically, Sony are saying that the only reason they took down the trailer was because the music license expired. They didn't have the license to the music for any longer, which also doesn't make sense, because if you're making a KOTOR game, wouldn't you just have the music rights to the trailer that you got made for? I'm not sure. I don't know, man. I don't know how music licensing works, but it seems kind of silly that they'd have to take down a trailer for one of the most anticipated Star Wars games just because they don't have rights to the music anymore. But I think it's also important to note that in this statement, they haven't said anything about the game itself. They haven't talked about where the game is at, the fact that it's still in development, the fact that it's coming along, any kind of release date or time frame. There's nothing on this game. Like literally nothing. You can look everywhere, and it's so hard to find any actual small bits of information because no one knows, because it's seemingly still kind of on hold. And there was that period, the transition between Aspyr Media and Saber Interactive, when the game had stopped development for a few months. No one was working on the game. Already delaying what is probably a massive Star Wars game to remake a game. I mean, let's take, for example, the GTA remakes. Rockstar decided to use one of their smaller companies to remake San Andreas, Vice City, and GTA 3. And look how that turned out. Fans were not happy. They were clunky, messy, had glitches, and at times the original games, which were made more than 20 years ago, were more detailed than modern games. And it was hard to believe that modders, who aren't being paid, who were just doing this for fun, could make San Andreas and Vice City look better using the 20-year-old games than a full studio could make a modern remake look. It didn't make sense, and I really hope all of that's not going to be the case for the Knights of the Old Republic. Until we get an official statement from Lucasfilm Games, from Disney, from Sony, or from Embracer Group, I would be very worried and skeptical about where this game is going to be, and let's just hope it doesn't join the pile of cancelled Star Wars games, because there are so many of them. The Darth Maul game is another example. Star Wars Imperial Commando. Star Wars Battlefront 3, guys, that game's tried to be made 3 times, it's failed every time. And I understand making a Star Wars game is potentially a lot harder than making a non-Star Wars game just because of approvals from Lucasfilm that are needed, because you're building everything in a pre-existing universe where things have a certain set of rules, you need to follow a certain aesthetic guideline, and you need to stay within the Star Wars universe. And as far as I know and of what I heard, Lucasfilm are quite strict about following that guideline.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
But it seems like they're loosening their grip a little bit. I mean, but that said, 2015 Star Wars Battlefront released with helmetless stormtroopers. How was that okay? Only time will tell what happens with Knights of the Old Republic remake. It's not looking good. Based on everything I've read about it, and even community feedback, comments, people on Reddit, everyone's concerned. No one's really convinced that we're ever going to see this thing beyond the CGI trailer we had, which was so brief and so long ago. And unfortunately, this seems to be the case with a few new up-and-coming Star Wars games at the moment, which are a bit in the dark. The first of those is Jedi 3, the sequel to Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor. Stig Asmussen just left the company, along with a few other prominent developers, meaning the next game, although it's being made, could have a completely different tone and hopefully not a quality drop. Star Wars Eclipse, the game from Quantic Dream, also seems like it's somewhat delayed. It's being worked on and they're not ready to show anything behind the scenes, but it still feels like it's going to be a few years before we actually get to play this thing. I'm honestly really excited for the future of Star Wars games. There's so much on the horizon and so much promise. Respawn are also making a first-person shooter. There's a new strategy game coming out. We've got Ubisoft Star Wars Outlaws, and I know there's a bunch of projects that they haven't announced yet, which are being worked on behind the scenes. But I'd love to know what you all make of this. Do you think we're going to see the Knights of the Old Republic released at some point in our lifetimes? Please let it be so. And if you want to learn more about what's happening with Jedi 3, the next Jedi game in the series, go watch this video here. And thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.